So this is the Lockdown Podcast episode 7 with Josh Maley.
Hey, Lisa, I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Good, very well, thank you.
So let's start off. Obviously, there's a lot of people will know who you are and all about you, Josh. But give yourself a bit of an introduction.
Okay, so I have been competing now for a decade, and the most kind of notable successes, I suppose, I won the Universe as an amateur in 2017, and I won the Universe as a pro last year in 2019. And amongst all that, I think I've done about 22, 24 shows now. So yeah, I'm becoming a bit of an old timer.
So now obviously we've known each other for a little while. We've had a few chats, we've had a training sessions, we've had good fun. But for people that don't know, give a little bit of a background, if you don't mind, of how and why you got into bodybuilding.
So I used to be I swam at quite a high level until I was 18, and when I swam, I was very, very skinny, always very self-conscious of that fact, and I always wanted to get bigger. So as soon as I decided to stop swimming, I think I was 19, I spent the kind of 40 hours that I was training in the pool, and I just went to the gym and trained every day for as long as I could until I started to realize that wasn't the best idea. And I just fell in love with it. I started getting bigger. I started feeling more confident. I started feeling just stronger, and then competed when I was 22 for the first time. And it just went from there, just snowballed. I loved it. It was an incredible experience. The prep was an amazing challenge. And yeah, the rest is history.
Oh, cool. So what if you swam, what?
Breaststroke, so I was quite good at that, and I kind of got to Commonwealth and Olympic trials, but then there was a big step from there to kind of actually get into the big events, and I realised I wasn't going to make it, and I also kind of fell out of love with it a little bit, so that was that.
So then, as you said, you'd spend maybe 40 hours a week in the pool. So did you initially, from what you said, did you take that mindset into the gym and try and do as much as possible?
Yeah, very much so. I didn't have a clue. I knew the basics of gym etiquette in terms of squat, bench, deadlift, and other kind of general movements. But I just went in and did everything. I think I still split it down to body parts, but I was training kind of 6 times, 7 times a week for 2 hours plus, and I would just basically do the encyclopedia of every exercise going until I couldn't do any more, and then I'd go home, and then I'd do it again the next day.
So then, obviously, you probably still gained a certain amount, but then, what brought you to make your best gains? Was it reducing the volume, or was it certain exercises?
Yeah, so I was really lucky because I fell in with a powerlifter who also had a real interest in bodybuilding. So he was, I think at the time, the raw bench press record holder. I think his bench press was 250 kilos. And I kind of eventually plucked up the courage and said, "Oh, can I train with him?" Because I'd seen how he trained. He looked, enormous, thick, heavily muscled guy. He said yes, and I suppose that was a turning point where I stopped training like a complete idiot and started following a kind of rational structure. And I kind of learned a lot from Rich, and then over time just sort of developed, I suppose, my own sort of training system that I just enjoyed and worked well, and balanced everything out in terms of muscle groups and volume and frequency.
Because are you still PTing? Obviously, not actually at the moment, but are you still PTing if you could?
No, so I stopped over about 14 months ago. I retired from one-to-one personal training because the online side of things was getting quite busy, and I just wanted to put all my attention into that and see if I could make a go of it. And touch wood, even though this is a bit of a crappy time for everyone, it's still going well, and I thoroughly enjoy it. It's a lot more, I suppose, accessible for a lot more people, and it gives me kind of a better diversity of client base.
Yeah, I suppose, for you've still got a lot that you want to achieve within competitive bodybuilding, and PTing is quite sort of time consuming. Whereas obviously online is, but you can do it at a time that suits you a little bit more. Is that right for you, would you say?
Yeah, absolutely. Since last year, it was February last year, and I mean, like you say, I'm still busy and I'm grateful to be so. But the fact that I can, structure everything around me, my training, my food, my cardio, was the kind of a big plus for me, alongside the fact that I actually enjoyed the work. But it's certainly kind of helped. I'm not having to get up at 5 o'clock anymore. I'm not having to kind of stay at the gym for 14 hours or whatever. And I can enjoy some home cooked warm food.
That's right as well. If you're PTing for 10, 12, 14 hours and you're in the gym, it's not that you wouldn't, but it's you're in the gym even longer when to do your own training as well. And sometimes it's like, oh shit, right, hang on, let's get motivated for this. But obviously that's not an issue anymore for you.
Yeah, exactly. I've always been passionate about training. I've always absolutely loved it. But you're right. Days of that. It just, I suppose it saps the energy out of you somewhat. And just, I can always get up for sessions, but there's certainly, since taking the step back now, when I go to the gym, I'm there to train, and that is it. And I could just throw everything I've got, all my focus, all my energy into being in that environment, which I just absolutely love.
So then obviously the way you structured things now with business, etc., have you noticed that that's made a difference in your physique as well?
I've certainly had until the beginning. Well, I mean, last year obviously was a fantastic year from a competitive point of view. So, the prep itself was I use the word hesitantly, but kind of easy in terms of, I got in shape and it wasn't a complete death march. Um, but then since then as well, like the off season until Corona came around, was going incredibly well, and I was kind of 320 pounds and leaner than I have been at that weight, feeling very good with it as well. Wasn't feeling, normally that kind of weight starts to drag a little bit. And I think the fact that like I was, getting a bit more sleep, um, because I wasn't having to get up as early, I could actually get some morning cardio done as well. And all of that has just kind of helped, I think, health and overall look really.
So, obviously, as you say, at this moment in time, I suppose really because you haven't got the ability to do everything you would and you'd like to do, is this giving you more time to think about what you want to do with your physique, where you want to go with it, and things like that?
I'm a bit of a short term planner. I don't really think too far ahead in terms of kind of what I want to do, um, within, I suppose, bodybuilding. But obviously, from a physique point of view, I know the areas I want to work on. I know that I want to become bigger and I want to become better. Um, and as although I'm training out of my spare room, which is small, I've got the bare bones to kind of create enough to certainly maintain and even, potentially improve some of my weaker body parts. Fortunately or whatever, but my arms are shit as well, Um, so obviously that's one thing that doesn't need a huge amount of weight, and I can do at home. So I'm hoping to come out of this with maybe a better set of arms.
Yeah, brilliant. And as you say, that so you are using it to your advantage. So as you've mentioned your arms, so is there body parts that you love to train, hate to train? Are you impartial either way? What's your views on that?
Um, I, I hate to train arms because I just find it a bit boring because there's not like that. I suppose that much you can do. It's a single joint movement, and there's only so many times you can kind of get excited about that. But because I'm excited about progressing within bodybuilding, I know I need to do it, and therefore it gets a bit easier. I love training everything really. I, the thing that's probably it's a double edged sword. Legs, I don't enjoy doing. I don't think anyone who trains them well does. But there's no better feeling than finishing, and kind of knowing what you've put yourself through and where you've taken yourself from. So um, they're sort of, I suppose, a favourite and a least favourite all in one.
So when you go into train legs, is there more of an air of apprehension more than anything else then?
Oh yeah, it's a straight up dread.
Oh, that's good. It's nice to hear that. I mean, the thing is, as you say, if you can keep that passion alive, whether it be for, as you say, out of fear, if nothing else, well, you know you're going to have a good session then.
Exactly. Like, there's always, even at home, like now, when I first started training at home, obviously legs, I haven't got a huge amount of weight. So I suppose I didn't have the same level of apprehension or fear because there wasn't, I suppose, the danger aspect of going so heavy. However, I've now created kind of sessions that are absolutely horrendous that I've now started to get that back before each session. Yeah, I mean it's an interesting one. Like I'm one of these who I don't get bored easily, so I can train. My session structure really has stayed very similar for probably a good 5 or 6 years, and obviously just throughout that I've maybe rotated exercises in and out and manipulated volume slightly. But I certainly think that having the limited kind of equipment and or no equipment and the limited weight has definitely made me think more and also enjoy that side of things more. That the fact that I'm such a creature of habit, so I'm thrown out of it, and I have to create a kind of a new structure and a new challenge for myself. And like it's been a month now, and as you guys said, you get to the point where we've accepted it, and you can start kind of embracing and enjoying it for what we can, and that's definitely where I'm at.
Yeah, that's cool. So obviously, the years competing for so many people has had to take a bit of a curveball. But what's next for you?
So this year was always up in the air in terms of I didn't quite know if I wanted to compete or not. So in a weird way, this has made me like just made that decision for me. Um, there were thoughts of doing the universe again, um, but I think for me, I want to make sure that now I've won that, if I'm to defend it, I want to be significantly better, and I want to make it near on impossible. Um, for me to be beaten. So with the way this has panned out and the fact that off season's taken a little bit of a hit in terms of I suppose being able to push as hard as I would normally, I'm just going to take the whole year to um, kind of push on and progress, and then look at competing hopefully in the middle of next year. I'm not 100% sure on shows yet, but that's the sort of time frame I'm looking at.
But or is that sort of the intention? Maybe obviously towards the end of next year, would that is your intention to go back to the universe again?
Initially, my thoughts were I would love to win the NABA Worlds because that's one that I've not competed at for a few years and not won. So that would obviously be the nice sort of final glory within NABA. But then someone from NABA sent me that they'd updated like the whatever they called it, the sort of history of NABA with regard. And I saw my name, and I kind of flicked up the list, and there's, I think, the most recent two-time winner was Tony Mount. There was Eddie Elwood, who's a huge inspiration of mine for kind of 5, 6, 7, 8 years. So I was kind of then like, oh, maybe do I want to try and make this a bit of a regular feature if possible? So I'm still in two minds about the universe. I think next year I will go middle of the year. I will give it my all. Probably do the NABA Worlds because that's when that falls. See if there's anything else about, and then depending how I feel and how I do, then decide if I want to then prolong through till the universe.
Yeah, I think a lot of people who are competing these days don't realize sometimes the history of NABA. I think it was the year you did the universe as a amateur. It was one of the anniversary years, and because we've got a program for that,
Yeah,
because I think Lisa was judging.
Mm.
Um, and when you've got the names of like Arnold, Charles Claremont, Brian Buchanan, Eduardo Kawak, and people like that, it's amazing the quality of people they've had over the years. So, I think it's still, a good title, and it's got a lot of history behind it.
yeah, and I mean, it's a fantastic competition. I think looking like you say, those names are just absolute icons within bodybuilding, and to even be on the same list as them is incredible. Like for me, I've never paid too much attention to kind of where I compete in terms of, like, I just love competing. So if you give me a good show, I'll do it. And one of the things when I came to NABA in 2014 was that feeling of, um, I suppose, you just felt appreciated as an athlete, like how they took care of kind of how the shows will run, how you would talk to, and all of that. And since then, I've just really, I suppose, grown a bit of a kind of love for the federation in that regards, and have thoroughly enjoyed every time I've competed with them. Hence why I've kind of really stuck by.
Yeah, I think you're right there. And surely, as a competitor, that's what you want. You want to enjoy the experience. And like I said, we've probably worked with, well, all the major federations. And I suppose you can pick. We certainly can pick sort of good and bad in all of them. But you say, surely as a competitor, you want to be there in a place that you feel good and you feel appreciated, and whether that's NABA, IFBB, Pro League, wherever, I think once you've found your place, then that's fantastic.
Exactly. I've competed. I did UKBFF right at the beginning. In fact, the very first show I did, I remember I asked you backstage what time I would be on, Mike, because I remember you working there as the UKBFF Leicester. I've done UKBFF, and you made that show great. And then I suppose I just felt a little bit sort of lost in it. After that, there was a big step up for me physically to the super heavies. And that's one thing, again, that kind of attracted me to NABA, was the fact that they do the height categories as an amateur, and being 6'6", it's hard to stand against. Like, for example, like Luke Sando, I stood against him in 2012, and you couldn't take two more kind of different heights and physiques. So that's another real plus for NABA. Same with PCA. I've always really enjoyed their shows since they came along. And as for sort of maybe like the IFBB and the two bro side of things, people say, oh, you should maybe try for your pro card, etc., etc. But again, for me, while I'm happy progressing and happy enjoying bodybuilding, I haven't quite got the internal need to kind of go that route at this point, anyway.
And I totally agree, because the thing is, as you said, when you think of, and you rightly said, the last prep was as enjoyable as could be. But when you think of your first prep, how, and for so many others, it's quite a, to get to a show and enjoy every single minute of it. Prep has been erased. So to go through that and go to a show that you're not going to enjoy for whatever reason, you don't have a good experience, you don't meet, it's not a great time, whatever, that will stick with you. But the fact, as you say, you found that place that you're still thriving, you're enjoying, and you're loving everything about it, well, it is absolutely the right place for you.
Exactly. I think, so many people place, titles and pro cards and, certain accolades within bodybuilding kind of at the pinnacle of the tree. But I've always competed to be better myself, to look back at last year's pictures and be like, I'm a better bodybuilder. And, it doesn't matter what stage I stand on. That will either be the case or it won't be the case. I'll either be better than last year or I won't be better. But, the like you say, the enjoyment factor, that's the real thing that kind of then makes everything even better and even more enjoyable, and like you say, even more worth it.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. So your last show, do you know what weight you were on stage roughly?
So I did 3 last year. I did the PCA, British or whatever they were calling it, I think, in the pro class there, and that was my heaviest. I think I was 295 there. I've started working in pounds because it sounds more impressive, Mike. So you just have to convert that. um, so yeah, I was 295 at the PCA. I was full. I was big. I wasn't as hard and kind of conditioned as I kind of set my standards out, but that was fine. I think that was 3 weeks before the universe. Dialed in for the universe. I think I was 289 for that one, and really, really happy with how I looked, and obviously won it, so that went well. And then 2 weeks after that, I did the NABI Europeans. I didn't have scales. That was in Italy, so I didn't have anything to weigh myself. But I ate a lot more aggressively in terms of carbing up for that one. So I suspect I was probably 290 plus there as well.
Yeah, so I'm at 6'6". I mean, those sorts of weights. 290 plus. I mean, I know 280 is exactly 20 stone. And I suppose people would be bloody hell, 21 stone on stage. But as you say, you're 6'6". So I think, at the moment, being in a height class in NABA, obviously the pros, it doesn't really make any difference anymore. But I mean, I think, would you agree that, if you did step up into sort of two bros and then eventually IFBB Pro, you're looking at maybe, being on stage at probably 340, 350. Would you say that would be about right?
I'm not sure that heavy. I think like three. If I put on 20 pounds of tissue, so say like
Yeah.
310 plus, that's going to be something pretty. I mean, I don't know many, if any, bodybuilders who have been that sort of weight. Obviously, there haven't been any my height really either. I'm keeping a close eye actually at the moment on Jamie Johal. I'm sure you know Jamie
Yeah.
or come across him. So he's obviously same. Well, I think he's maybe 6'5", and he's obviously an IFBB pro. So I'm kind of looking at him, and I'm a bit gutted, obviously for him and just for everything, that he can't compete when he planned to, because it would have been fantastic to see someone of my height stand up in the pro leagues and see how they looked. And obviously, I'm not comparing myself directly to him, but from a height point of view and a weight point of view, we kind of hit similar numbers. So yeah, I think that would be it. For me, if I can keep getting better, at some point I will feel that I can go over to the two bros, the IFBB, and I can be competitive. Because at the end of the day, no disrespect to anyone who just chases that IFBB pro card, but I don't really want to just make up the numbers in a show. I don't want to get that card and then never make a top six again. I want to be able to be in a position that I can compete. And until that point, I'll just keep working, and I'll just keep doing my own thing, competing where I feel best, and then make that call when it comes.
Yeah, it's a case of, do you want to have that pro card just for your CV, or do you want to do something with it?
Exactly.
Yeah. So, yeah, as you say though, there's plenty of time, because how old are you, Josh?
I'm 32. Yeah, so I'm not the youngest anymore. It seems to have gone quite quickly.
But also,
Yeah,
you're far from the
yeah,
oldest, as you say. Look at when Roden won the Olympia. And a lot of the guys are mid to late 30s. So, you've still got a
yeah,
lot of time left.
Yeah, definitely. Like I feel, I feel young as well. Like I still feel fairly immature, not immature, but like I still feel early on in my career, although I've competed a fair bit and I've done a fair bit, I still have the same sort of enthusiasm. I still have, it's nothing's a chore. Everything's, I enjoy every aspect of it, the routine, the structure, the diet, everything. And, I, while I have this feeling, I will just keep going. And like you say, I think realistically, a lot of guys kind of seem to start to peak around mid 30s. So I've still got 3 years and then some to progress. And if it comes to the point when that IFBB Pro card is just going to be the sort of trophy, then I'll go for it. But until that point, I wanna put my efforts into creating the sort of best, I don't know, legacy or whatever until that point.
Yeah, so obviously you're in it for the long haul. So do you um, sort of always keep that in mind with your training? Have you had any, we've all had niggles, etc., but have you stayed relatively injury free?
Yeah, touch wood. I I think I tore my rotator cuff in 2018, but that's fine now, and that has been the only injury that has had any significant impact on my training. So that was probably 4 to 6 months of training subpar with regards to kind of pressing movements. But still, that was through the prep for the 2018 Universe, and I still managed to come second, and I still looked, pretty good. So I touch wood. I've always trained well, fairly sensibly. I've never ever done anything less than 5 reps. And if I ever kind of get to 5, 6 reps, it's normally a misjudgment on my part in terms of the weight. I'm big on my stretching. I'm big on my mobility work. When I can, obviously not at the moment, I get regular kind of tissue work and massage. So yeah, touch wood, this body's holding on okay.
But the thing is, with all that in mind, you're obviously more aware of rehab than a lot of bodybuilders are. So, what would you train in? Obviously, post spare room. What would you and pre room? What would your training be? Are you body parts a day? Are you every day? Are you 5 days?
So I find for me it's between 4 or 5 days a week. So I was doing 5 days before this. I do chest and shoulders together, so I kind of call it a push pull legs, whatever you want to do. And because chest and shoulders, or chest particularly, is a weaker body part alongside arms. I was doing one pull session a week, so back and biceps, mainly back, and then 2 chest and shoulder sessions, 1 leg session, and then I added in an arm session and an arm day because, like I said, they need work.
Yeah, so I mean, again, what you've done is you've adapted your training split for what you feel your weaknesses are, rather than just doing a general push pull legs, like and there's nothing wrong with that. But I think, especially if you're a competitor, you have to see what your strengths and weaknesses are and adapt your training split for you. So, on paper, some people would look at your training split and say, well, you're not training your back enough, etc., etc.
Definitely, and I think that's one thing. Push pull legs is an absolutely amazing split for anyone, kind of in the early days when realistically, like everybody to begin with, they just need size, and I still need more size, but I also now know. I've been doing it 10 years and I've been training hard for those 10 years. And I know that my arms haven't grown the rest as as well as the rest of me. So it would be stupid for me to just keep doing the same thing and kind of just hope that by tagging them on at the end of sessions, they're going to change when for a decade they haven't, like as much as everything else. But, for guys starting out, that sort of body part split, that frequency is going to be a real plus. It's like if I have a client now and they're, early 20s, there's plenty of lagging body parts, and they come to me and say, can I have an arm day? I'll probably tell them to fuck off because there's so many other things that need to be bigger and better for them to worry about that. But you come to a point where that does become a priority. Likewise, like you said about potentially on paper it not looking like I train my back as much. I have a good, I suppose I can lift quite heavy with my back, and I know that because of that and because of the sort of accuracy I can hit it with, it needs the recovery. And then also on my leg day, I always make sure I have in like a stiff leg deadlift variation, which is going to work that posterior chain anyway. So it's kind of getting hit in sorts twice anyway. But again, it's all how you factor things in for the individual based on kind of priorities.
I mean, I was just actually, as you were talking then, when you were saying about your back and everything else, and I mimicked to Mike breaststroke. So, as you say, going back to the very, very start of this conversation was what sport you came from. So, the
Yeah.
legacy from that sport has already found his way into your new passion, and obviously that's where you're getting that connection through your back and everything else.
Yeah, I think you're right there, and also just the fact that it can handle a lot of volume. So although I might only be training once, it's a serious kind of stint of work as well.
Yeah, definitely.
And also then plus the when you were talking about legs earlier, and how you need to well, everybody does need to psych yourself up. You almost sort of, it's one of those things, yeah, you look forward to, but you dread at the same time. But I think to have 2 sessions like that a week, it
Quite stressful.
can be stressful and difficult to recover from sometimes.
Yeah, definitely. And, like you say, throughout the kind of years, things have changed. It's not like I've been doing this all the time. I know I said I kind of followed a structure in terms of how I plan sessions out. But, I think from kind of particularly the early years, probably from 2011 to 2013, 14, I was training legs twice a week then, splitting it into like a quad dominant and a hamstring dominant. So again, kind of, when you holding on to tissue is a lot easier than building it. So sometimes you just need to put in that graft, get it there, and then you can sort of taper it back a bit. And now I know that, I can train my quads with 2 exercises a week for maybe 4 hard working sets between the two on each exercise, and that is more than enough to hold and even still grow them. Whereas other body parts need a lot more attention and volume.
Yeah, definitely. When with your height, is there exercises that you need to avoid or that don't particularly work for you? In what maybe w- generally other people would always put in their sessions. Is there any exercises because of that don't really work for you?
Yeah, I mean, I've always had kind of issues with lower back, and nothing sort of diagnosed, nothing that's taken me out of training in any way. But, if anything's going to kind of twinge or niggle, it'll be the lower back. And like you say, it's how you think about training. So for a long time, the first 5, 6 years of my training, I thought, you had to deadlift, you had to rack pull because, that's what, the key, that's what the big guys did. That's what the strong guys did. But realistically, I'd do it for 2 months. I'd build up, I'd build up, I'd build up. I'd twinge my back. I'd have to back off for another 2 months. Then I'd get the balls to do it again. And it would just kind of go round. So I don't deadlift. I don't rack pull. I can stiff leg deadlift well and safely. I think because it's just that element of constant tension, and obviously the load in a stiff leg's marginally less than a normal deadlift. Um, Outside of that, there aren't any exercises that are kind of risky to me. I think the longer you train, the more you kind of connect with certain movements and maybe favor them in your programming. I don't tend to squat now. I love squatting, and if it wasn't if it was strictly for enjoyment, I would definitely squat. But from a practical point of view, the amount of time it's going to take you to warm up for a squat and kind of, go all in on a squat movement or a free bar squat anyway, the kind of stress, central nervous system stress that then it takes me to recover from that, it just isn't worth it. So like a hack squat for me is a much better option.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I totally agree with what you're saying. Again, about with a deadlift and a rack pull as well. I mean, people will attribute, say, a good back to deadlifting, but it's like, yeah, show me somebody who just deadlifts and has got a good back. They forget about all the other exercises you're doing. And then as far as the rack pull goes, everyone, you'll see videos of people say squatting or leg pressing, and everyone gets on their case about, oh, you need to use a longer range of motion. And then a rack pull is when you see
Yeah.
it, it's a bloody short range of motion, and so it's like, what are you actually working?
Yeah, and a huge amount of load, a huge amount of stress, and the heavier you go, the more risky movements go. If you're off slightly on a really heavy movement, you're going to do a lot more damage than if you're off slightly on a lighter movement. So again, like you say, kind of risk and reward.
Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah.
And the thing is, as I've always said, football and rugby, they're two totally different sports, but they both use a ball. Weightlifting, powerlifting, bodybuilding, they're totally different sports, but we all lift a weight. So, of course, the thing is, when you get to that point in your career, you realize you're trying to nurture and sculpt a piece of art, then you do what it takes. You don't do what everybody else does in the gym.
Yeah, definitely. I think it is so easy to see, especially I suppose with social media and being strong as a man is a very I suppose egotistical thing. It's deep within us. We all want to be that strong guy that people kind of look up to and think that's incredible. But the fact of the matter is, like you say, it's bodybuilding. It isn't a strength sport. That's not how we win competitions. So it needs to be taken, with a pinch of salt, and a bit of common sense and logic needs to be applied to our training.
Absolutely, because the thing is, as I've said to many, many people, when I'm judging you, I've never ever asked you how much you can squat. I've never asked you how much you can deadlift. I've never asked how much cardio you've done. All I have is you is standing there in the poses for what, 15, 20 minutes maximum. There is no backstory. So you produce the best physique you can, and then it's up for to me to critique that physique and for you to improve. So how you get there, I really don't mind, you know?
Yeah, definitely. And it's the same with like measurements. Guys who get hung up on you know having certain inch biceps or whatever. Yeah, sure, from a personal point of view and logging progression, it makes sense. But if you're going to start dick measuring, again, the judges don't care if you've got so like your biceps are so many inches. If they look pretty shoddy on stage, if you're out of condition, if you pose them like a sack of shit, it doesn't matter. So yeah, agree.
Yeah, yeah. You touched on earlier about cardio. Was that in off season, or are you only a cardio when you're in prep?
So for 9 years, I was only cardio in prep, and for the last year, I've been cardio off season and all year round. And it's been really interesting because I feel so much better in myself. My things like my blood pressure are better. My recovery from sessions is better. My appetite is through the roof. Even just doing 20 minutes of cardio in the morning, I can then put away 6,000 calories through the day with no real issue. Whereas I know in the past, if I ate the same volume of food with no cardio, it was that bodybuilder force feeding feeling. And that's why the off season that kind of got paused at the beginning of this situation was going so well, because training was going excellently, recovery was great, cardio was consistent, food was going in at a good level, I wasn't getting too fat, and I was feeling fantastic. So it's had a really positive effect. And people have always told me or suggested it would be a good thing to do cardio, but until you kind of do it and get into a routine and start to feel it, that's when you realize that actually, for me anyway, it's a huge, huge bonus.
Yeah, I think as well, the fitter you are, and if you're not, your training's definitely going to suffer. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, and this is why for me it's so night and day, because I've now been on both sides of the coin. I've done the leg sessions where I'm 320 plus pounds with no cardio, and I'm doing a couple of sets and a couple of heavy sets, and I am absolutely gassed. It's going to take me 5-10 minutes to even recover. Whereas now, I'm still able to push the same intensity, but I'm able to then hit the next set a lot quicker. I'm getting more volume in the same time frame. I'm creating greater stimulus, greater damage in a shorter time frame, and I'm recovering better because of it.
Yeah, and as you say, you've done it both ways, so you've clearly demonstrated, on yourself that that is the better way to go.
Yeah, I think, and especially as like the bigger you get and the heavier you are, ask anyone really over 300 pounds. Like, if you don't really do a lot, it's not a very comfortable experience. Stairs become a challenge. Trying to put your shoes on become a challenge. And because I've experienced these things, I love bodybuilding, but I also like to kind of enjoy and feel pretty healthy, and like, I don't want to feel like complete turd every day. I like to be, able to just put my socks on and put my shoes on and, pop down and, run downstairs and take the bins out or whatever it may be. And I think when you've experienced, like I said, both sides of things, you appreciate, the health side of things a lot more.
You finding as well the effect it has with your sleep pattern? Do you find you sleep better doing it like that?
Oh, I mean, I'm an anomaly on the sleep front. So I can honestly sleep for Great Britain. I could sleep for the world. I can sleep, whether I'm off season, 1 week out from a show, whatever it may be. I can put my head down, get 7 8 hours. I can have a nap in the day. I'm the cure to insomnia.
Oh, so you're the one.
I am the one.
When you said just now about being, when you've been 300 plus pounds, etc. And now at 5'7", I've never been that weight, but I can sort of appreciate. I think the heaviest I ever got at my height, I was 260 in the off season. And at 5'7", that was bloody hard work. And I don't think it actually, by the time I dieted down, I didn't improve my physique really. So I never got to that weight again.
Yeah, I mean, I first hit. So I tend to, for the past, I think, 4 or even 5 years, I've peaked my off seasons at 330 pounds. Now, if you take that back 5 years when I was doing that, the amount more muscle I have now compared to them is, a huge amount. But so I completely agree. Like I got up to 330 pounds then, and I took it all off again. And even like now, I'll get around to the similar weight, but just there's a lot less to drop. And you feel a lot better for it. I do think there's a place for pushing weight to kind of almost set a new sort of standard for how heavy you can be. But if you do it kind of year on year, where you're trying to always get heavier, it's not going to be a great way of doing things. There becomes that thing where quality is certainly more important.
Yeah, as you say, it's not all about, just because you're on stage heavier, you're not necessarily better. As you said a lot earlier on, when we were chatting, it's about, you want to bring a better version of yourself, and that's not always being heavier.
No, I think from last year or from 2018 2019, I think the weight difference was, if any, kind of 1 or 2 pounds. But I certainly feel like I look like a better bodybuilder. And I definitely saw progress in that time. Weight is obviously a kind of very objective point of measuring, I suppose, some sort of progress. But like you said, we are looking at this from an aesthetic and an art point of view. And if I'm putting on 10 pounds and 5 pounds looks like it's gone around my waist and thickened out, then the other 5 pounds isn't going to make up for the kind of reduction in how pretty I look.
Yeah, totally. And unfortunately, as we get older, and not that you're anywhere near this age, but we don't produce anywhere near the amount of collagen that we do when we're younger. So if you're putting on the 10s, the 20s, the 30 to 40 pounds, when that comes off, the skin will very rarely go back tight to the muscles. So as you say, if you're doing it in a more controlled manner where you're not stretching the skin into places and outer places it doesn't need to be, even that will keep the physique looking younger.
Yeah, definitely. And I think we've all seen, I love going to shows, and I absolutely love the masters classes as well, because I'm so inspired by them. But you're right, you can completely see guys who have had to come down a lot, and the little kind of, the skin hanging at the top of the trunks and things like that, versus some of the guys, and you're thinking, how are they even in a masters class? They look like they could be an open, in their 30s. So there's a huge amount to be said for that. And again, I like to look at this from a long-term point of view. I want to look damn good when I'm 50. I don't want to be, a saggy kind of skin folded mess.
Yeah, but as you say, and that's it. But the thing is, you're nowhere near that age, but you're thinking about that now. So even though you said there's no long term goals in your mind, you still know what you want to look like in the other side of 50. So I mean, that's brilliant.
Yeah, I mean, I want to be able to. I look up again, like I said, because I love the masters classes. I look up to so many guys in there. Like I know Gary Lister, kind of, he was competing until very recently as a masters, and obviously he had such an incredible career before that with NABBA and things like that. And like guys like that, I think to myself, I want to kind of be in a position where I can still be training and still be looking like that, and realistically, if you just absolutely hammer, every side of bodybuilding at a young age, there's going to be some repercussions at some point. And, I want to try and avoid that as much as possible. Um, and again, enjoy the journey and make it a long one.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, we've done a few podcasts with bodybuilders that are obviously still young, fresh, like yourself. Everything's still going. The enthusiasm is great, but honestly, it's so refreshing that every one of you is all about longevity. About how you want to and how you perceive yourself to be in years to come, as opposed to exactly as you say, just beat the shit out of it, fuck the consequences, let's live for today. But all of you is health, well-being, future. It's so good that so many of you and the mindsets are just so right.
Yeah, I think we're in a really fortunate place right now with, I mean, particularly British bodybuilding, and by no means do I follow everyone, but I know the people that I follow give, not only an extremely positive message, but also there's a lot more knowledge and kind of information around health, and for the past kind of 5 years this has been building, and I think gone are the days where people, hopefully this is the case anyway, like aren't aware of kind of their blood work, their blood pressure, things like that. And it's all coming together right now where we've got the information and the sort of science and then the bodybuilding, and it's tying in, and it's a nice amalgamation of everything.
Sorry. So at the moment, then, in your daily routine, what is there anything you'd recommend? Is there anything you won't go without, as in, general health, for your physique?
I mean, the list of supplements I take is pretty extensive because I, they all have, I suppose, their benefits, and like I say, I kind of track my blood work, so I kind of know what I want to stay on top of, and obviously as a bodybuilder, kind of liver, kidney health, etc., are really important. As a basic sort of staple for any bodybuilder, really. Like my sponsor is Strom, this isn't a direct plug. This is just generally because they do the best product for this. The support max that they do, the on cycle support, is it's essential to myself and to, like I say, any bodybuilder going down that route. And I'm big on kind of immune health as well, just the basics: vitamin C, vitamin D, vitamin A. Obviously, at the moment as well, with everyone so panicking about the virus, it makes even more sense. But outside of supplements as well, it's the food you eat. Like, and this is again where I kind of can tell you firsthand how I feel different. Like, I was in my kind of earlier days, I sort of neglected the sort of veg side of things. I was just like, you get the real, I suppose, in inverted commas, important food in your protein and your carbs, and everything else sort of fell by the wayside. Whereas past couple of years, I've eaten lots more, load more fruit, load more veg. I eat a lot every day now, and I feel a lot better for it. I seem, on paper to be a lot healthier for it, and it's all those things combined.
Oh, cool. And again, the thing is, there's nothing you've said there that's not, you know, um, that hopefully people are hearing day in, day out. But I just want people to take note and actually get in on that, because as you say, you're just your basics, your vits and your multivits and things like that. They're just putting that on the back burner. So it's trying to make sure that everybody that's listening does the basics. Then, as you say, you can go on to health and well-being and everything else as well. Then,
Definitely, like I kind of have, if I get a new client, then I'll always have a basic sort of supplement for them, and that'll normally be vitamin C, vitamin D, a good fish oil, probiotic, and that's kind of normally, it's a basic for, we're covering immune health, gut health, and all the benefits that come with a good fish oil. So it's going from there, and then obviously based off of, you know other aspects of your life, other areas that might need work health wise, or, stress, etc. You might want to then develop that. Like I said, for me, I've got an extensive list simply because I suppose, I'm in a position where I'm looking for every sort of 0.5% of benefit in terms of performance and health. but as basics, that's definitely where, you know, people need to be aware of and be starting with.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, because I think, maybe a few years ago, just people, as you just said, would concentrate more on performance. But I think I said it in another podcast. I remember when Lee Haney was in the middle of his Olympia run, and he did a seminar, and somebody asked him, what are you going to do next year?" Expecting the answer to be, "Oh, I'm going to be, 5, 6, 10 pounds heavier on stage and blah, blah, blah." But he said, "I just want to remain healthy." Because he knew at the time all he had to do was remain healthy, because nobody was going to come close to him. But I think people are thinking more along those lines now, because if you haven't got your health, then literally everything else will fall by the wayside.
That's it. You know, that you just covered it there. You know, health, they're not exclusive. Health and performance, health complements performance. You haven't got health, you can't perform. And you know, that right there is everything, and it should be, you know, this, it's like the foundation. You know, you don't run before you can walk. If you haven't got your health in order, everything above that, yes, you may be able to push performance and push, you know, size on, etc., but it's going to be a real forceful effort that's going to be a lot more damaging to your body than if your body is in a lovely place, it's, you know, enjoying life, it feels good, everything's working. You know, the progress you can then make off of that foundation is so much better.
Yeah,
Cool.
100%. So, with the current situation, obviously you've said you're well, probably more than getting by, with your training to a certain extent. Are you still keeping up with your cardio?
Yeah, I've got a bike. I bought a bike because, you know, I like I said, for me, cardio was something that I always wanted to do, and I always found an excuse to do off season. So I thought I need to actually go out of my way, get something so that I can commit to it. So I've got a bike. So that's, you know, I've stuck very much to my routine. I'm a big advocate of kind of structure and routine, particularly, you know, right now in the situation, because I think if you let things slip with nothing else going on really and a lot of free time, you can really let your body and your mind get away from you, and that's just going to kind of tear people apart. So, you know, from day one, I just carried on. I'm up at 6 a.m. I do my cardio and I crack on with my day. I make it as productive as possible with regards to work, and then outside of that, I try not to spend kind of too much time lazing about until it gets to maybe kind of 6, 7 o'clock in the evening. Then I'll kick back, watch a bit of Amazon Prime or Netflix, and chill out then.
Yeah, Netflix. What is that all about? Jesus, we've just discovered it. Oh my God, it's lethal.
And so, as well, are you managing to get everything that you need food wise at the moment?
Yeah, I seem to say I'm lucky quite a lot, but I do feel really lucky because I live in a fairly small town, but it has got a very well, and it's not that it's a student-based town, and obviously the university's closed, so it's got a really good kind of it's got several supermarkets, and because of the I suppose reduction in volume of students, the food issue hasn't really been noticeable. I think there was right early on there was one shop I did. I couldn't get eggs and I couldn't get chicken, but then I went to the local butchers and I got um, chicken, and I think I just got some beef mince because they had that. But that was, I think, 1 week, and I always have food in the freezer anyway. Um, that I couldn't do my normal shop. So touch wood. I mean, we're out of it now in terms of panic buying, but yeah, I've been in a good place there.
Oh, that's yeah. So perfect. So you within reason. You're just sticking to the plan, basically.
Yeah, I mean, like nothing has changed. You know, I still the training frequency is still the same. I changed it slightly. I've gone to a 2 days on, 1 day off routine, um, just so it kind of keeps me in a slightly different structure to normal, but still something that I can enjoy and work with. Food wise, because I was kind of hitting peak off season food, and because I suppose the level of heavy training isn't possible, I reduced that down, just so at the moment I've sort of my weight's come down and I'm leveled out at kind of about 308, 310, and just feel really good for it. You know, all being well, you know, the thought process behind it is that, I take a bit of time now, continue to train hard, eat a little bit less, get in an even healthier position. But when we come out the back of this, I can then push on and see some really nice progress, because there's no point just plowing in the food and getting fat if you can't quite convert it into hard training.
And that's it. And you're doing absolutely everything right, but you're using this time in a positive manner. Because the thing is, it is an opportunity to be better or worse, and really, that's up to you. So to take this time, produce the physique you want, rest when you need, do your cardio, eat well, is a win-win.
Yeah, and I think hopefully, if people have that mindset, there's such an opportunity for not only people into bodybuilding, but just people who want to get their health in a better place. This is the perfect time for it. There's everyone's got all the time in the world to do their home training, and for 99% of the general population, home training is more than enough. They can get out and do some cardio once a day. They could do something at home, whatever it may be. There's no excuse to go out and drink. There's no excuse to go out and eat. Like, we should come out of this as a very healthy country. And if we don't, then the people have really been proper arseholes.
Yeah.
I think, like I said, we don't know what's going to happen when we come out of this lockdown, but you say there's a lot of people that seem to have got into a bit of exercise during this. So I think that gyms potentially we're going to get really busy after this. Would you agree?
I definitely think so, because so many people, they use two things as excuses. They use time. Now, obviously, when people go back to work, time is still going to be a factor. However, the second thing is routine. And right now, people are going to be getting into a routine of training, a routine of exercising at least, and
Mm.
they're going to want to continue that, because no doubt that they will be feeling better in themselves. And if they then go back into how they were, they'll quickly realize that they much prefer training. And like you say, once gyms are open, the amount of excitement just in terms of people who like to train is going to create, I think it's probably going to attract even more people to them.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I walk for miles every day, always have done. But geez, the people out on walking around at the moment. So if we can get half of those in the gyms, that'd be great.
Exactly. I know it's almost, you look for the positives in all these things. And I go for my walk every day down the canal, and I've done that for the past kind of 5 years, maybe not as regularly as I am now, but I can see a huge influx of people doing the same thing, taking their bikes out. And
Yeah,
it's a really nice thing.
yeah, good.
So when we can go back to the gyms, etc., what gym do you train at the moment?
So I flit around a little bit, because there's a gym in my hometown, that's really good. They've always been really good to me. It is on a little bit of the basic side, so I tend to only train there maybe twice a week. Then there's another gym about a 20-minute drive away that's a lot better kitted out. So I train there twice a week, and then I also train over. I do legs normally at Jamie Johal's gym, actually, which is in Ilkeston, which is about a kind of 30-minute drive from me. So I normally go over there, and I sometimes see a couple of clients as well, who are in the area, and then I'll train legs. So that's kind of my little split between gyms.
Yeah, but that's good as well. It keeps everything fresh.
Yeah, and I see different people, and I see different faces, and different equipment. And also, if ever I do want to kind of change up my routine, I have all these different gyms that I can pick from.
Cool.
Yeah, so, well, I don't know if you can see on your screen, but we've been going for just over an hour now. So I think,
Yeah.
we won't take up any more of your time. I mean, this is exactly like when we did the Q&A at Body Power a couple of years ago. You're just so easy to speak to. You answer questions fully. It's been really good. I've really enjoyed it.
Yeah, cool.
Oh, thank you, Mike. Well, honestly, I love speaking to you guys, and I've got a huge, so much amount of respect. Like I said, you were the first person at my first show who was a friendly face and who kind of pointed me in the right direction and was super kind. And since then we've crossed paths many, many times, and I've thoroughly enjoyed it every single time. So I look forward to when this is all over, and hopefully sooner rather than later. And whether the event goes ahead at your place or not, I know it will at some point, and I'll be there with a big smile and hugs for all of you.
Yeah, that'd be brilliant. Yeah, that's superb. So thank you again for that.